Good evening, good afternoon, wherever you find yourself in this weird, wild, wacky world of ours, and welcome to the exciting installment of Darkness in Dublin. This evening's scene, someone who has had something very valuable to them broken seeks advice from those who might view the world a little bit differently. The street that surrounds you is a high class neighbourhood in upmarket Dublin. As it stands, it's rather interesting. High buildings on left and right, three, four-story tall houses done in the old Victorian Edwardian style with large cast iron gates in front of them. However, ironically, the person that you're looking for you find sitting outside of the house, and he's telling a story to a group of children. He seems to have them all captivated as he speaks tales from mysterious pasts, distant lands, mysterious figures. As he sees you coming, though, he says, "Ah, children, it appears that my appointment is here, so please run along. I will tell you another story tomorrow."
Oh,
Yeah,
you don't have to do that. You can finish the story. Vince will kind of pop a squat next to one of the children. Continue.
and if you're, by all means. And so it was, you see, that even though he had climbed to the tallest tower, located at the castle at the edge of the endless desert, the princess that lay there, encapsulated and trapped by a spell, could not have her heart freed from the ravages of an evil jinn, whose heart was as black as coal, as black as amber. And so it was, he cried for 7 nights and 7 nights more, until his tears formed in his hands as an ocean that forms from bank to bank. It was only then that, moved by his tears, a spark, a tiny infinitesimal spark of light could be seen. It formed within the heart of the genie whose heart was made of abyssal onyx and blackest black. And so it was, in exchange for 1,001 tears that the man had cried, he allowed him but one moment with his sweetheart. And one moment was enough, as he passed the threshold, as he walked over the boundary, and in the embrace of true love's kiss, did they themselves liberate one another. The Jinn racked and railed, he screamed and cursed. However, true love cannot be undone. And so it was that our hero managed to take the princess back across the boundless desert, across the endless sands, and brought him back safely to his home. And that, children, is why, even when all things are darkest, hope can only be found if you look deep within yourselves. Now, run along. I have to have a conversation with this gentleman. The children will scatter before he will. The man smiles and he says, "My name is Nareen. It is a pleasure to make your acquaintance."
My name is Vincent Wilson.
The man extends his hand to you.
He shakes it. It's a nice firm handshake.
"So tell me, Vincent Wilson, what is it that you have come here seeking?"
I thought I was doing something right when I went to help someone in need. And I helped my friend, and my friend is whole again, but I seem to have broken myself in the process.
So what you're saying is that in your attempt to do something good, in your attempt to do something that you deem to be right, upon the journey of those steps, you ended up losing yourself.
I am not resentful. I am more looking for a reason why those that tend to give of themselves freely only end up losing so much in return.
He nods. He hasn't gotten up from where he was sitting on
Mm.
the steps to the house, and he says, "If I give you enough food to eat for a day, you'll eat. If I teach you how to grow your food, how to subsist, you'll live. Which is better, to eat or to live?"
It's subjective. It's what's the greater need.
There you go. Ultimately, because you give of yourself, you give people the chance to succeed, you give people the chance to live. Ultimately, sometimes you must contemplate that what you give up, you give to others. So, though you may feel diminished, upon a great pedestal you have placed others, their lives above yours. There is virtue in that. There is truth in
But in this truth that I went and sought out, what I've chosen to believe and what I've chosen to dictate a large portion of my being behind isn't what I believe it to be. Actually, it's just a chasm, empty,
it.
pointless.
In what way has something that you valued been proven to not have value?
When you believe that there's a higher power, that there is a God, speak, and the God that you specifically given a fraction or everything you're all to, and that God has basically been revealed to be at the heart of it, capitalistic dribble.
Let me ask you a question. Just because something is not what you perceive it to be, does that mean that it is inherently false?
It would be false insofar as realizing that rain, that the sidewalk is wet, could very well not be a miracle, just be rain.
Mhm. Let me ask you this question then. This God, who you now believe is the center of this great conspiracy, this capitalist conspiracy, as you call it, to whom you gave so much of yourself, your innermost soul, do you believe he loves you?
I believe that it was wishful thinking on my part.
But I fail to see. You've now been given the concept of your faith, even if it is not what you perceived it to be. You know that there is a being who admittedly has had these tales of great compassion written about him. He
Mhm.
has been the father who has guided. He has been the son who has suffered. He has been all that you thought he would be. And yet, just because of how it is presented to you, that you have lost your faith.
The reason being is because when you, it's like waking up one day and realizing that the the authority figures that you thought were your authority figures aren't actually that.
Let me ask you a question, my son. When you were younger, when before all of this, before power, before anything, before any of this, when you were a young man, in the darkness, when you were sad, upset, when you cried, did you ever pray? Did you ever truly, with the innermost depths of your being, utter words to some higher calling, to some higher being? And did you ever feel comfort or succor from speaking those words, thinking that someone whom had love and compassion for you would hear them?
At one point, I did, to what was revealed until when I spoke to the God entity, and what I was praying to wasn't that. What I was actually doing was, I guess, a very basic form of meditation.
But then the fact of the matter is that you prayed, you had the validation, you sought truth, and you were given your own truth. Just because something is not what we perceive it to be does not mean that our perceptions are inherently always incorrect. What gives us comfort and what gives us succor does itself give us comfort and succor. You were not wrong. This entity that you sought out was not inherently wrong in and of itself. It's just you perceived it in a different manner. Can one not be the same? Can the two not reach across the void to grasp each other's hands again? Can you not once again be the boy who would pray? Just because you are now armed with knowledge, knowledge does not necessarily slay faith.
Can you really, though?
We can do wonderful things. We can immolate the night sky with flame. Some of us can bring back the dead, and others can talk to spirits. We can do wonderful, fantastical things. And yet, so many of us cannot simply have faith. We believe in ourselves as miniature gods made manifest. We believe of ourselves and we only see our own powers. We lose sight of anything higher than ourselves. Light and darkness become encapsulated in us, the one, the being. However, in those moments, before you had power, before you had anything else, you and this entity, regardless what mask it may wear, you had that relationship. And in that relationship, you drew strength and you drew solace. Just because you now have knowledge does not mean that in those moments when you prayed, he did not look to you. In those moments when you cried, he did not wipe away those tears. Just because you have knowledge does not mean he did not care. Just because you now have knowledge does not mean he does not care.
I just have trouble reconciling that.
Look deep inside yourself. The fact of the matter is that you have had an epiphany, perhaps, an experience whereby you have questioned. After all, even those who have the strongest faith must eventually question it to know if their faith is genuine. Perhaps this is merely your test.
Being able to move and dictate things, to be able to essentially understand myself on a primal level. I'm no longer just moving things or manipulating things. I'm forcing things into reality. Couldn't that just be a god in and of itself?
That depends on what you believe the nature of a god is. Many of our kind give in to their own hubris and think themselves, I am great, I am powerful, I am the master of this or the lord of that. And inherently they could in fact be correct, I suppose. But ultimately, when it all boils away, when it all comes to be truthful and when it comes to being truthful and honest with ourselves, where did this spark come from? Where did the ability to reweave the light and the dark come from? It came from somewhere. So you could be a god if you think about gods only having the ability to make, to manifest, to be. But who gave you the gift to become the man who would be God?
Possibly.
I can only give advice, noble sir. The fact of the matter is that you're the only one who can listen to your own advice. You're seeking validation because you feel as though you are lost. And I can understand that perspective. Being lost in the desert alone is a truly terrifying concept. However, only you can find your own truth. Only you can reconcile your faith with your father, if he is your father, or can walk a separate path if you believe that you are the son who must turn his back on his creator. Both of these are valid life choices, but only you can decide which path you wish to walk.
To your point.
He smiles and he says, even if you do not necessarily believe in him anymore, I sense very much that he still believes in you.
So, we'll have to see, won't we?
I have faith that before this is all over, you will find your faith again, Nishat. I shall hope that you do. I shall hope that you find your way back onto your path.
I hope so too. And
He
he
extends.
smiles.
Oh, sorry. He extends his hand to you again.
He grips his hand, shakes it.
If you ever require me, you know where to find me.
Yes, definitely.
Walk a safe path.
I will.
And if you're happy, we can end this here.
Yep, we can end it there.
Cool. Thank you, player, for playing. Thank you, watchers, for watching. This has been another scene in Darkness in Dublin. Have a pleasant evening.